My name is Tammy Meyer, and I'm joined by Dasaratha Rama, and we're going to explore her work, Growing Systems of Success and the 6 C's. And so, Rama, over to you.
Thank you, Tammy, and I appreciate your willingness to explore systems of success with it, work with me. I want to focus on one component at a time, and so grateful that you're willing to go on this journey with us.
Yes, I'm playing it forward.
Thank you. And can we do the screen share and get started?
Let's just jump in. So Rama uses thortspace as a canvas to be able to explore her work, so we can see the map. So here we are in thortspace.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm going to start with a scenario because I feel it's easier for people to connect to something tangible. Since we're using ThoughtSpace, I figured might as well use ThoughtSpace as a scenario. ThoughtSpace is a visually immersive mind mapping platform, uses spheres, as you can see. But what I'm thinking is it's also a company with a product that's relatively new to the market, and they have to think about how to engage their current, prospective, and experienced customers. So that's the scenario that we'll dive into a little bit as we go along. And I want to close this video segment by, with a call to action. People can jump in, join our Facebook group, and tell us what they think.
Wonderful. So in terms of this journey today, there's the scenario here with customer engagement on Facebook groups. And that's part of what we're really talking about, is how do we engage and to be able to know more about what's out there. So let's dive in a little bit to your work, Growing Systems of Success.
Okay. So before we do that, I'd like to frame in the challenge a little bit. There are the usual challenges of engaging people on Facebook. It's nothing new. I mean, it's easy to create a Facebook group. It might even be okay. You can get people to sign up, but people will show up and most people will not say anything. So it's really challenging to have an engaging Facebook group. And when you take something as technical as ThoughtSpace, I mean, it's fairly easy to use, I found, but still, it's still a new tool and people have to try and
the learning curve.
Learn it. So I think that's particularly challenging. So people might be in the group and say, well, I don't really know this tool. I have never used it. And what can I say? And so a lot of people might just be quiet because of that reason. So how do we engage people, and how do we tell people it's okay? We in fact want to hear from people who have never used it. Why have you not used it? What might we do to encourage you to use it or to support you in using it?
Right, exactly. So how one of the things I've been inspired by in terms of you and how you do your work is that you are really an orchestrator, bringing people together and giving people little pieces to engage with on a regular basis. And so it's like tending a garden, really.
That's a discovery that I took some time to get to, because I would present my work in bigger pieces. And I think it's overwhelming for people who don't know what it is. So I just realized that, taking it one building block at a time is probably a way to go. So that's definitely my direction at this point. Thank you. Yes.
Wonderful. So what's our next piece?
The next piece is what I would call the solution. And I'm thinking about the GSS canvas, but I don't want to go too deep into the GSS canvas on this video. I just want to talk about the systems of success piece of it. The journey that we are using is going to be available as a web link. So I do encourage people to click this link. They'll go to the website. They'll see pieces of the canvas. And as we go through the remaining video segments, they're going to see different parts of the canvas at that time.
Great.
So, we will proceed with it that way.
So shall we jump into the actual canvas?
Yeah, not the entire canvas. I'm just going to use the ThoughtSpace itself,
yes,
and use a thought-space mind map rather than the canvas at this point.
Great, perfect.
So I think that'll be a little bit easier to use at this point. So I'm just going to go to the, okay. So are you still seeing this, Tammy? Or?
I'm seeing us. So we'll
Okay.
reshare. We're learning
Okay.
how to drive all these tools at the same time as sharing them. So it's an immersive experience for all of us.
Okay.
Perfect.
So
Yes.
now this model, again, I'm not going to spend too much time because the previous segment that we did actually walked through the different roles in some detail. So I don't really want to repeat all of that. I just want to tie that in to what it might mean in a scenario like the customer engagement scenario we're looking at.
Great.
So the point that I had brought up there was influencers are the energy source in the network. And in this context, who might be the influencers? And people might think, oh, influencers, those are people who are very experienced, who know a lot. But for me, an influencer is anybody who cares to participate. So for example, there could be a prospective user, has been watching it, thinks there's something in it, but has never, really tried it. Could be a real influencer because they could be asking questions such as, how do I get started? I'm really not sure. And something might come out of the discussion. So they might actually help people answer the question, is this for me?
Yes.
So one of the things I would really like to emphasize is influencer doesn't mean somebody who has a lot of experience. Somebody who does not have experience with that, somebody who has a little bit of experience, somebody who has a lot of experience, any of those people can be influencers in a network.
Absolutely. And people who want to ask questions are some of the most powerful influencers because it gets us all thinking.
Absolutely. So that's a point I would make. Then come the orchestrator. So I think I see the role of the orchestrator. A big part of what they do is to spot those influencers, because when you start a group, I think you'll start seeing that. You'll start seeing some people who are out there who will be jumping in, saying their thing, and see what they can do with them. So in my particular case, the approach I'm taking is to do influencer of the month. So my thinking is make influencers visible, because a lot of times what can happen is if there are many people saying different things, for somebody especially coming new to the group, it's too confusing because there are too many projects, too many ideas, and they don't know what's going on. So an idea that I'm considering is do an influencer of the month. So they say, okay, here is somebody, and this month, of course, we have you as our influencer. So we give people a chance to really look at one kind of influence, and they can see the influence. We did our first Zoom call last, week, and then, or was it this week? Well, this week, and they can see the influence happening.
Yes, and both of our work is growing, and our competencies, and I'm just so grateful to be able to learn with you and learn about your work. So thank you.
Thank you. So once this dance between orchestrators and influencers is happening, then what I think that gives us, what we're looking for, is the 6 C's. And the 6 C's model, by the way, was the first piece of GSS to be developed. It was something that I was sending all these experiments and saying, is this what you think the PhD project does? Is this the value of the PhD project? And finally, when I got to the 6 C's, they were happy and they said, that's it, that's the one, just keep that. So the 6 C's have stuck and they've stayed for a long time. Other pieces have been added and removed and modified and so on, but the 6 C's have stayed. One thing that has happened is I've given them a name, Systems of Success, because outside of the PhD project, hey, we have to talk about 6 C's. People don't understand what that is.
Right.
So Systems of Success has given me a label to kind of think about this idea. So the way I see it is, if you take your customer on a journey, conversations is a good place to start.
Yes.
Bring them into Facebook, let them be part of that conversations.
Yes.
hopefully they get some clarity. They can answer, is this for me? And what do I do? Right? And then they can hopefully make connections with other people. They can learn to make better choices because, there are just so many different ways to use ThoughtSpace. And that's the kind of the strength and the weakness, because you can just use it in a million different ways.
Right.
So, million different ways can actually overwhelm me. Just give me something I can do right away.
Yes. And then to coordination.
Yes. And at that point, the coordination could take different forms. And we're actually experimenting with certain forms where some people might say, I love the look of this. I'd like to use this, but I really don't want to deal with ThoughtSpace itself.
Yes.
So we are trying to come up with a sort of an ecosystem approach where there might be somebody out there who's willing to develop ThoughtSpace, and then somebody end user who just wants to use it. So one of the ideas I'm playing with, and this is sort of actually a prototype for that as well, is that if I can deliver a journey like I've built, I can give them a web link. So for example, somebody wanted to do a Zoom conversation with their group, didn't want to learn ThoughtSpace, but they were willing to design a journey with 5 or 6 bubbles like this. I could put it on ThoughtSpace for them, give them a journey, and then they could embed and do the screen share and do Zoom. So they would have to still learn Zoom, but they wouldn't have to learn ThoughtSpace.
Yes, that's wonderful. And that brings us to competence. And I think what I'm most excited about our collaboration is that I've immediately increased my competence in
yes.
work. Yeah.
Yes. And competence goes also hand in hand with confidence. It's sort of like, yes, I can.
Yes.
The first time I'm, like a lot of people, I'm not too keen on being on video, but just after one call, I said, hey, this is not bad. We can do it.
Yes, yes. So to wrap up, where do you want to point people's attention to further engage and participate?
I'll just go back to the journey for a minute and just bring people back to sort of the origin of this work a little bit, which is the PhD project model. My big takeaways from the PhD project model is very clear orchestration. They have a very clear blueprint. They have a couple of conferences they do every year. And, they have a growing social media presence, and they do a lot of storytelling, their video channel and a lot of other things. So little by little, I'd like to look at some of that. But the PhD project has been an inspiration for me because they have very clear orchestration. They have a very clear blueprint that's been almost 25 years in the making.
Yes.
And that's a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of influencers. So PhD project is the work on which my growing systems of success is based.
Wonderful. And so how can people link with your work if you want to give people directions of where to go to engage, learn, participate?
I think a good place to go would be the Facebook group. And maybe we'll end with that. So let me just wrap up with one more, thought here.
Perfect.
And then I'll just go to the Facebook group for a minute.
Sounds great.
So, so it's actually what I'm talking about here because, I've really learned a lot about at least what I need for orchestrating. And I think it's important to recognize this fact. Every network's different and networks also grow. So you have different needs. There's no formula for the right way to orchestrate.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something to consider in mind. And that's why the canvas is powerful too, because you can look at it and you can see where your network is and what you need to do next. And for me, there are a couple of things I need to do next, which is deliver one building block at a time. I really see a clear need for that. I see better engagement when I do that. So thank you again so much for, being willing to do these videos. And then...
And it's fun.
and hopefully, other people will look at it and say, hey, that makes sense. Maybe we shouldn't do too much. Maybe we should try to do a little at a time. So
yes.
Hopefully there's some larger learning in this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then your turn to try.
Great.
So again, with that building block notion, I want to leave every segment with, something for people to do.
Yep.
So that's why I started with the scenario. So they can look at that scenario, they can visit ThoughtSpace Facebook group and think a little bit about, hey, what could the creators of ThoughtSpace do? How could they engage customers? Maybe they can even say it from the perspective of the customer. Why do you think the customer is not wanting to engage? And we can take it from there. And then the other one, I'd also like to encourage people to choose their own scenario. Is there a network you're building, you already run, you're already orchestrating? What issues do you see? That would be another good step.
Absolutely.
So for either of those, I'd like to invite them to the Facebook group. So maybe I can stop this screen share and go for a minute to that Facebook group.
Wonderful. And so what I love about this is the show don't tellness of it. Just showing people what can be done and really going deep into what's possible. Great. Okay.
Let me finish with 1 minute. He wants to dance, so.
Yes, of course. I love how reality is interpenetrative.
Yes.
That's your son. Yeah.
Yes, he's, I'm interrupting his dance practice time, so he doesn't like that, I guess. So anyhow, let's go to the Facebook group for a minute.
Wonderful.
Why is it not? Okay, there it is. So now I can do the screen share. So this is the Facebook group. I hope you're seeing it, Tammy.
Yes.
Okay. So the idea is that there'll be video segments that present one building block at a time. To summarize, today's building block was the 6 C's or systems of success: connections, conversations, clarity, choice, and competence and coordination.
Yes.
So it's something to think about, and you can pick one of them. You're not going to be, really focusing on all the C's at the same time. So maybe clarity is a good one, because if you're trying to, engage customers, one of the things you want to do is bring clarity. So maybe that's a good place to go.
Yes.
So think about, how are you building your network? How are you bringing clarity? And for me, one of the answers is, it's better if I go one building block at a time, just really clarify that, and then take it one step at a time. And for the answer might be different for everyone. And same with the influencers. I think I'm trying to do that influencer of the month also to bring clarity to what the influencers are doing in my system.
Right. Wonderful. Well, Rama, thank you so much. People can check out Rama's work at Growing Systems of Success on Facebook. And we'd also encourage you to check out ThoughtSpace. And very much appreciate people being interested in this developing work, because at the end of the day, we all need to grow our competencies and connections. And one of the most powerful ways of doing that is through conversations. And so, Rama, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy. And Zoom Conversations is a new, piece to add to my toolkit. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much.